and welcome to NewsX World's Newsroom. I'm Kriti Mehta, and in this show we bring you a roundup of all the top stories that took place today. Let's start with the news, in fact, over Russia's opposition leader Alexei Navalny, who was killed in February 2024. Now, as per the latest reports that we are now picking up, 5 European countries have issued a statement to say that Alexei Navalny was instead definitely killed using a dart frog poison. This is a chemical that was used to toxify the Russian opposition leader and killed while in prison. 2 years on from the death of Navalny at the Siberian penal colony, Britain and its allies have blamed the Kremlin following analysis of material samples that were found from his body. 5 countries, UK, Sweden, France, Germany and Netherlands, came together to issue the statement and said that Russia saw Navalny as a threat. By using this form of poison, the Russian state demonstrated the despicable tools it has at its disposal and the overwhelming fear it has of political opposition. In the statements, the allies also said, and I'm quoting, "Only the Russian state had the means, motive and opportunity to deploy this lethal toxin to target Navalny during his imprisonment in a Russian penal colony in Siberia, and we hold it responsible for his death. Epibetadine can be found naturally in dart frogs in the wild in South America. Dart frogs in captivity do not produce this toxin, and it is not found naturally in Russia. There is no evidence or innocent explanation for its presence in Navalny's body." Well, that's the statement that's been issued out by these 5 European countries. My colleague Marisha Barve joins me from the newsroom here. Marisha, Navalny's wife Yulia Navalny has also issued a statement on social media to take us through her post and the statements and the details and the timings of these 5 European Union countries coming together to take Russia into account.
Yes, well, Kriti, considering the time and space right now at where Russia stands, even in the midst of so much global pressure that Russia is already facing, the controversial death of Alexei Navalny adds yet another strain when it comes to Russia. It once again is part and is receiving immense condemnation from the Western European countries, like you mentioned, the 5 countries, that is Britain, Sweden, the Netherlands, Germany and France. All of these, like you mentioned, did issue a joint statement when with regards to Alexei Navalny's death. Now, before we head into the details of it, let me just give you a little background of who Alexei Navalny in fact is. Navalny was a prominent critic of Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, the current president as I speak, and a leading anti-corruption activist in Russia. He gained immense international attention for exposing government corruption and organizing protests within Russia. Now, in the year 2020, Navalny was poisoned with a nerve agent but survived after treatment in Germany. He later returned to Russia, where he was arrested and imprisoned. And now, at this point, his death has triggered global outrage and further strained relations between Russia and the Western countries. Now, like you mentioned, that his wife, Yulia, has also come about and issued a statement where Yulia Navalnaya, who is Navalny's wife, thanked the European countries for uncovering the truth. She in fact stands in solidarity with the 5 nations who did issue the joint statement. She said that the findings confirm her belief that her husband was in fact poisoned. She also said that the epibetadine is one of the deadliest neurotoxins that cause paralysis and respiratory failures. She accused the Russian president for being responsible for her husband's death, and now she calls upon the Russian president to be accountable, to be held accountable in the midst of the global condemnation that they're facing when it comes to this controversy that has in fact sparked. You did say that epibetadine is found in poison dart frogs from South America and is not naturally present in Russia. The country said that this strongly suggests deliberate poisoning and not from natural cause. The death of Navalny in February 2024 happened while he was held in the Russian penal colony, and government said Russia had the means, the motive, and the opportunity to carry out this conspiracy of poisoning. Russia has claimed Navalny died of natural causes, on the other hand, but European states said that the evidence at this point contradicts the claim. The countries also cited that Russia's history of violating international law, including chemical weapon convention, has been seen, and they strongly suggest that this again is yet another attempt of Russia proving to have deliberately carried forward the death of Alexei Navalny. So yes, Kriti, this is what we know at this point. The investigation is still ongoing. Reports are yet to be confirmed by Russia, like I mentioned, but at this point, this is what we know when it comes to the controversial death of Alexei Navalny.
All right, Marisha, thanks very much for joining me with those details. In fact, let's now move on, viewers, and talk you through another global issue. We are talking about US and Russia escalating tension, and in the latest in that regard, the son of Reza Pahlavi, the son of last Shah, Reza Pahlavi, has urged the global community to come together as protests are continuing over the Iranian regime, even as the Munich Security Conference is being held. Now, this is the latest development that we are picking up. Let's in fact tell you more details. Son of Iran's last Shah, Reza Pahlavi, is saying he is ready to lead a transition as demonstrators demanded the overthrow of Iran's rulers. Now, viewers, let's tell you that this is of course coming after Donald Trump has issued threatening statements to Russia time and again. In fact, deployed more USS carriers towards Iran, with Gerald Ford being the latest one after USS Abraham Lincoln is already there in a bid to threaten Iran to come to a deal as far as its nuclear program is concerned. In fact, Netanyahu and US President Donald Trump have also recently met, after which Trump's pressure on Iran has escalated, as Netanyahu is more concerned not just about Iran's nuclear capabilities, but also its growing missile arsenal and capabilities. On Friday, Trump has said that a change in Iran's government would be the best thing that could happen. So clearly, there is increasing calls for a change in regime and for Khamenei to loosen his grip on the country. Iran was in spotlight in Munich, where protests took place on the opening day of the annual Munich Security Conference, which was attended by European and global security leaders. Meanwhile, backers of People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, also known as the Mujahideen-e-Khalq, also rallied against Tehran's violent suppression of nationwide demonstrations last month. Reza Pahlavi, meanwhile, who left the country during the 1979 revolution, he spent nearly 5 decades in exile, is now seeking to play a role in Iran's future. And speaking at the news conference in Munich, he cautioned that more lives could be lost if if democratic nations do not do anything and simply stand by and watch the present situation in Iran. Let's remind you viewers that as per US-based human rights agency groups, at least 7,000 people were killed during these protests, including 214 members of the security forces. But these figures are only as per US human rights groups. Some are even reporting deaths in multiple thousands, more than 10,000. This is only the figure that is emerging from US groups. So those are the latest details. In fact, Marisha is there with me from the newsroom here. Marisha, talk to us about the latest deployment from the US towards Iran, and whether Khamenei is really going to relent, or can the US afford a strike?
Yes, well, Kriti, a lot of interesting comments coming in from Trump, from Reza Pahlavi, from a lot of leaders. It's gaining immense traction with what's going on in Iran at this point of time. Now, when it comes to Iran in itself, it is extremely volatile at this given point of time, considering the fact that it is still recovering and that violence is still ongoing within the nation with regards to the protests, the immense lives that were lost in Iran due to the instability in governance. Now, followed to which Trump, who is US's president, has time and again threatened to want to invade or take charge or carry forward military operations in Iran. And yet again, we witnessed Trump once again reiterating his intentions about the attacks in Iran. Now, according to two US officials, the US military is preparing, in fact, for a possibility of week-long military operations against Iran if Donald Trump orders the attack. Now, such an operation would be far more serious and sustained than previous US-Iran military actions. Now, the planning raises the stakes for ongoing diplomacy between the United States and Iran over Tehran's nuclear program. Now, US and Iranian diplomats recently held talks in Oman. This is something that we must take note of, with more negotiations expected in Geneva as Washington attempts yet again to reach a deal. At the same time, Trump has significantly increased the presence of the US forces and military in the Middle East. The Pentagon is sending an additional aircraft carrier along with fighter jets, guided missile destroyers, and thousands of troops to the Middle East Sea. Trump has publicly suggested that regime change in Iran could be, as I quote, the best thing, though he said he prefers a diplomatic solution overall, despite of continued threats with regards to his intentions with military operation in Iran. The White House officials say, as I quote, all options are on the table, but emphasize that Trump will decide based on US national security interests. Now, US officials say a sustained campaign could involve strikes not only on Iran's nuclear sites, but also on state and security facilities. Unlike previous one-off strikes, this operation could involve ongoing back and forth attacks between the two nations. Iran is expected to retaliate, raising the risk of a wider regional conflict. Now, in the midst of all of this, you see Iran has warned it could strike US military bases across Middle East, including those in Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, also mentioning Jordan and Turkey. In the midst of all of this, experts say that Iran's large missile arsenals makes any prolonged conflict especially dangerous for US forces. Interestingly, even Israel is closely involved diplomatically with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, saying any Iran deal must protect Israeli security interests. Now, US officials warned that if diplomacy fails, the alternative could be more severe and destabilize military action. So all in all, Kriti, conditions in Iran are still volatile. It's still dangerous territory considering the ongoing threat and the destabilized governance in Iran in itself. As we continue to see if we still observe if at all Trump does go ahead with any sort of military operation within Iran is something that only time will tell.
All right, Marisha, thanks again for filling up viewers with those details. And we now move on, viewers. Now, the 62nd Munich Security Conference is being held in Germany from Friday to Sunday, and a lot of world leaders have gathered there, including US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, European Union leader Ursula von der Leyen, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, German Chancellor Merz. We also saw the attendance of Syrian top diplomat Asaad Al-Shibani, among others. The first day of the gathering on Friday had seen French President Macron calling for a strong Europe, while German Chancellor Merz acknowledged that there is a rift between Europe and the US. In fact, more details we are going to take you through the events and the developments of today. But first, let's tell you that this conference has attendance of 60 heads of state and government, 50 leaders of international organizations, and participations from at least 115 countries. Let's now take you through, viewers, some of the key statements from leaders that we saw today. Now, Marco Rubio, US Secretary of State, has delivered a fiery address today emphasizing unity despite differences. He declared the US and Europe belong together, but still stressed the need for a shift. He said, "We want allies who can defend themselves, so no adversaries will feel inclined to challenge our collective strength." Then German Chancellor Friedrich Merz set a somber tone, stating the post-1945 rules-based order no longer exists, urging and ushering in an era of great power politics where even strong nations are at risk. European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen called for assertiveness. She said, "We in Europe should be ready and willing to use our strengths proactively to protect our security interests, while advocating a new doctrine to defend Europe's territory, economy, democracy, way of life, while urging a recalibration of tools like trade and tech." Then the spotlight for today was, of course, on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who pushed back on concessions, urging stop asking Ukraine for concessions while Russia pays none, in a message that was clearly for the United States. Said the US should pressure Moscow too. He emphasized peace requires real security guarantees with Europe involved. Then UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer also warned of Russia's rearmament, noting losses exceed 1 million, but the threat persists. We must build our hard power, adding there is no security for Britain without Europe. French President Emmanuel Macron, he said, while appealing for pride, Europe must act proudly, not be vilified. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen also noted Trump remains very serious about acquiring Greenland, heightening Europe's insecurity. In fact, let's now go across to Marisha, my colleague. Marisha, we do understand that the Ukraine war remained a key focus for this Munich Security Conference, especially the second day today. There was also focus on the transatlantic alliance. What real progress do you think was made from today and yesterday in this conference?
Yes, well, Kriti, what is happening in Munich right now is extremely important high-level discussions between within heads of states who are coming together to talk about security. This, in fact, is coming at a very crucial time, and time where security has been a major global concern between many nations. Now, when it comes to, as you touched upon, Ukraine, the terms of Ukraine's safety and security is rather one of the top points of discussions at this given point. In fact, today, like you touched upon, Zelensky came forth and he did address the conference where a lot of comments came with regards to how he thanked the European nations who stood in solidarity with Ukraine against Russia. He further went on to also make comments about Russia and Putin and how he condemns the actions and the constant violation of peace when it comes to the ceasefire talks between Russia and Ukraine. But this being one part, and yet notably a major part of what's going on in the Munich Security Conference, let's touch upon what other nations and what other global powers had to say and their feedback when it comes to their input in the conference in itself. Now, when you look at it from the NATO's standpoint, where Mark Rutte took the dais, he further said no European country is arguing to replace the US nuclear umbrella. This is also shifting focus from just Ukraine and Russia, but also globally when it comes to threats with regards to their security against the US. Rutte said Russia's oil income has fallen by about 1/3, forcing Moscow to burn through its sovereign wealth fund. He stressed that NATO and the United States are fully aligned on Ukraine peace talks. In fact, Rutte said that Russian forces are suffering, as I quote, crazy losses in Ukraine, estimating around 65,000 casualties in the past 2 months. When it comes to Germany's standpoint, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz revealed he held confidential talks with French President Emmanuel Macron. The discussions focused on strengthening Europe's nuclear deterrence amid high security concerns. And from France's standpoint, French President Emmanuel Macron said that if the Ukraine war ends, Europe will still need, as I quote, rules of coexistence with Russia. He emphasized the need for a new European security framework after the war. And from the US's standpoint, when Marco Rubio took to the dais, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Washington does not know if Russia is serious about peace talks. Rubio said India is willing to also halt Russian oil imports. This is also a point where India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar responded by saying India cannot compromise its strategic autonomy. Now, in the midst of all of this, China has come forth with Wang Yi, who's the foreign minister of China, said Europe should be involved in efforts to end the war in Ukraine. And when it comes to the Middle East and security, there were more talks that went on with this. So, yes, Kriti, this is what we know about what's transpired in Munich.
Marisha, thanks very much once again for sharing those details and updates from the second day of the Munich Security Conference with our viewers. And viewers, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of the Newsroom on NewsX World. Stay tuned for all latest international news and updates right here.